This has got to be one of the most insane miracles in the Quran that I've discovered so far. In chapter 10 verse 92, it basically says that God will preserve the body of Pharaoh so that it may be a sign for those of the future. In 1881, archaeologists discovered the body of Ramses II, who was the most powerful pharaoh in ancient Egypt. His body is over 3,000 years old, but it is the most preserved body in the whole entire world. You can see his skin, his hair, you can even see the shape of his mouth and his nose. It's crazy. Scientists even today are baffled at how this is even possible. In Paris 1975, Dr. Maurice Bucaille examined the body of Ramses II. They found an extremely high level of salt in his lungs. Also, they found mud in his mouth and his nose. After an extensive examination, their conclusion was that this pharaoh's death was not natural at all. It was from a sudden, violent drowning.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to listen to the blonde bimbo as she recounts the miracle in the Quran about the Pharaoh's body, Ramses II, being preserved by Allah, and how he died by drowning, and how, scientists and Dr. Maurice Bucaille proved that he drowned, a violent drowning, how they found salt in his lungs, how they found mud in his nose and his mouth, etc., etc. How he is the most preserved mummy in the whole world. Let me tell you, ladies, that this is all bullshit. All right, I went to Imam Garak, peace be upon him or her, and I asked, once again, I have to debunk another asinine Muslim claim, and yes, they're all asinine. This one revolves around the so-called safe pharaoh in the Quran, which they claim is Ramses II. Remove any scholarly bias, including Islamic bias, and answer the following and cite sources when available. Is he the Pharaoh of Moses? Nature of his death? Any credible evidence that he died of drowning, like the one by Dr. Maurice B. claims? Got it. You want a clear, unbiased, scholarly look at the claims that Ramses II was the Pharaoh of Moses and whether he drowned, as described in the Quran by Dr. Bucaille. Yes, Dr. Maurice B. is Bucaille. I'll focus purely on historical, archaeological, and Egyptological evidence with cited sources when possible. All right, let's address the first one. Is Ramses II the Pharaoh of Moses? There is no credible historical or archaeological evidence that Ramses II was the Pharaoh of Moses. Let me read that again. There is no credible historical or archaeological evidence that Ramses II was the Pharaoh of Moses. Details: Ramses II reigned from 1279 to 1213 BCE. Is one of Egypt's most famous pharaohs, known for his extensive building projects and military campaigns. The biblical Exodus story places the events traditionally around the 13th and 15th centuries BCE, but the exact dates vary widely. And no Egyptian record mentions Moses or the Exodus event. The Quran mentions a pharaoh during Moses, but does not name him explicitly. I mean, the Quran does not name anything. Okay? Some Muslims and popular commentators, like Miss Lily, the half-brained blonde bimbo, equates this pharaoh with Ramses II, mainly because the Bible mentions the city of Pi Ramses as one of the store cities built by the Israelites, which Ramses II built. This association, however, is speculative and based on a single place name. Egyptologists argue that no archaeological or textual evidence links Ramses II to the Exodus event. Many scholars now consider the Exodus narrative a theological or legendary account, not a historical record. Whether it is or not is not the question. It cites the sources here. I'm not going to read them all. All right. Then we go to the second question, which was, how did Ramses II die? Let's look at historical and archaeological evidence and not the bullshit that some wannabe doctor writes in one of his books. Ramses II died about age 90, one of the longest reigns in Egyptian history. Ramses II died of drowning. No, it says Ramses II died at the age of 90. His mummy, discovered in the 19th century, which would be the 1800s, and is now housed in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, shows signs of arthritis and dental problems consistent with old age. There is no evidence, again, no evidence, you hear that, you lying blonde bimbo, of violent death or drowning in any records or examination of his mummy. Here again, we have sources, something that Lily doesn't know about. Okay, now let's go to number 3. Is there credible evidence Ramses II drowned, as Dr. Maurice B. claims? Maurice Bacali, a French medical doctor and the author of the Bible, the Quran, and Science, written in 1976, argues that Pharaoh drowned, citing Quranic verses and interpreting the drowning as a medical and scientific event. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, he lied. However, his claim about Ramses II drowning is not supported by Egyptological or archaeological evidence. Bacali's conclusion comes from theological interpretations combined with some modern medical knowledge. I don't think he was a very good doctor, but not from direct historical or forensic evidence about Ramses II. Physical examination of Ramses II's mummy shows no signs of drowning or sudden death by drowning. Drowning is not recorded in any Egyptian historical sources for Ramses. He was buried in a royal tomb, indicating a normal death and embalming process. Here we go. Summary. Ramses, Pharaoh of Moses. No archaeological textual evidence to support this. Ramses died by drowning. No evidence in mummy or Egyptian records. No evidence in mummy or Egyptian records died of old age. Dr. Maurice B. claims theological scientific interpretation, not historical fact. He's just a Muslim. All right. Didn't do anything. Okay. Now let's go to, I'm sorry, correction. That was not Grog. That was Shake ChatGPT. Now let's go to Grog. All right, same question, so I'm not going to bore you with that. All right, so we're just going to go down. All right, is Ramses II the Pharaoh of Moses? Answer, there is no definitive historical or archaeological evidence to confirm that Ramses II was the Pharaoh associated with the biblical or Quranic story of Moses and the Exodus. The identification of Ramses II as the Pharaoh of Moses is a popular hypothesis, but remains speculative and debated among scholars. All right, evidence and analysis. Biblical and Quranic context. The biblical Exodus and the Quran, chapter 10, 90-92, describes a Pharaoh, no name, during the time of Moses, but do not name him. The biblical account mentions the Israelites building the cities of Pithom and Ramses, which some link to Ramses, a city constructed during Ramses II's reign. This has led to speculation that Ramses II is the Exodus Pharaoh. However, this is circumstantial, as the name Ramses in the Bible could refer to a region or city, not necessarily the Pharaoh. Then we look at the chronological challenges. The traditional date for the Exodus, based on biblical chronology, suggests 1446 BC, which places this during the 18th dynasty, during the reign of Tammuz III and Amenhotep II, not the 19th century when Ramses ruled. A later Exodus date, 13th century BC, aligns better with Ramses' the second reign, but this requires adjusting the biblical timeline, which is controversial. No, we do not fit Ramses into the timeline if the timeline don't jive. Archaeological evidence. There is no direct archaeological evidence of a mass exodus, so we're going to skip all of that. That's not relative. We don't care about alternative candidates. Okay. All right, conclusion. Ramses II is plausible but unproven. Let's go to the nature of Ramses' death. How did the man die? Historical and scientific evidence suggests Ramses II died of natural causes, likely related to old age and chronic health conditions around 1213 BC at approximately 90 years old. There is no definitive evidence he died by drowning, unlike Mr. Maurice Bacali and the little blonde bimbo. Mummy examination. Ramses II's mummy, discovered in 1881, unimportant and now housed in the Cairo, has been extensively studied. CT scans and forensic analysis indicate he suffered from several dental problems, arthritis, arteriosclerosis, aka hardening of the arteries, and possibly heart disease. These conditions are consistent with death by old age or cardiovascular complications. Let's move into archaeological records. Ramses II burial in tomb KV7 in the Valley of the Kings, followed by his mummy's relocation to a cache due to looting, suggests a standard royal burial, not a death in unusual circumstances like drowning. Hieroglyphic records on his coffin's lining confirmed these movements with no mention of an extraordinary death. Historical context. Ramses reigned for 66 years, outliving many of his wives and children, and left extensive monuments. We're not even going to talk about that. Scholarly consensus. What do the scholars say? Most Egyptologists, including Sahih Hawass, conclude Ramses died of natural causes. Howie has noted the absence of lungs in the mummy makes it impossible to confirm drowning, as lung tissue would be needed to detect water sediment. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Lily said that his lungs were inspected. How do you inspect lungs that don't exist? What's the conclusion? The best available evidence points to Ramses dying of natural cause, likely due to age-related ailments. All right, let's go to number 3. Any credible evidence that Ramses II died of drowning, like Dr. Maurice Bacali claimed? Answer: there is no credible scientific or archaeological evidence supporting his claim that Ramses died by drowning. Bacali's assertions, which link the preservation of Ramses II to Quranic verses, are wildly criticized by Egyptologists and lack empirical support. Meaning Dr. Maurice Bacali and the blonde bimbo pulled this shit right out of her ass. Bacali claims Dr. Bacali, a French physician, examined Ramses in 1975 in Paris to address fungal damages. In his book, The Bible, the Quran, and Science, he argued that the Quran statement about preserving the body of the Pharaoh aligns with Ramses' mummified remains. Oh, God. Oh, man. Implying drowning. Bacali suggests traces of salt in the mummy indicate death by drowning in seawater. He also claimed that this led to his conversion to Islam. I mean, when you follow a religion that's built on lies and desperations, what do you expect, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, scientific critique of the idiot. Salt in mummies. Natron, a naturally occurring salt mixture containing sodium chloride, sodium carbonate, sodium bicarbonate, and sodium sulfate, was a standard agent in Egyptian mummification. All mummies, not some mummies. All mummies, including Ramses, contain natron residues, which Bacali may have mistaken for seawater. This undermines his claim, as salt presence is not evidence of drowning. Now we go to the big one here, lung absence. Zahi Hawass and other Egyptologists Note that Ramses II mummy lacks lungs, which would be critical for detecting water or sediment indicative of drowning. Without this tissue, drowning cannot be confirmed forensically. So how in the hell did Dr. Maurice or Miss Blonde Bimbo here claim that the lungs were inspected? The mummy condition, the well-preserved state of Ramses II mummy with no signs of water damage or trauma consistent with drowning, contradict Bacalli's hypothesis. Drowning victims typically show physical signs, especially bloating and tissue degradation, not observed here. Okay? Archaeological and historical counter evidence. As noted, Ramses II burial and health conditions point to death caused by natural causes. His long reign and lack of Egyptian records mentioning catastrophic death, drowning further weakened Bacalli's claim. Egyptian records rarely omit significant events, especially for a ruler of Ramses II's stature. Bacalli's bias. Bacalli's work is criticized for blending religion interpretation with science. His focus on Quranic verses led to selective reasoning, ignoring standard mummification practices and forensic limitations. We can skip the alternative pharaohs. Scholarly reception. Bacalli's claims are largely rejected by mainstream Egyptologists. Conclusion. There is no credible evidence that Ramses II died by drowning. Bacalli's just pulled that shit right out of his ass. Final note on the Exodus. All right, on Bacalli's influence. Sources of uncertainty. All right, here we have Bacalli, All right, now she said that he was the best preserved mummy. Right? Evaluations. Is Ramses II mummy the best preserved? Condition. Ramses mummy discovered is remarkably well preserved for a body over 3,200 years old. It retains facial features, hair, and skin, though some damages occurred due to the tomb looting. But boy, people like the loot and relocation. CAT scans reveal severe dental issues, arthritis, arteriosclerosis, but the body is largely intact with limbs and torsos preserved. All right. Comparison to other mummies. Tutankhamun, I know I pronounced that wrong, is found in 1992. Okay, so he's older than Ramses. Is well preserved but suffered damage from excessive resin used during mummification, which caused the body to stick to the coffin and darken. The skin and tissues are intact, but the body was cut during extraction. All right, the face is a little bit less than what do you call it, Ramses? Okay, let's go to Seti. Also older than what do you call it, Ramses. Is also found is also cited as one of the finest examples of mummification. The face is exceptionally well preserved with delicate features and minimal distortions. The body is intact, though some minor damages occurred during looting. Man, why they gotta loot? All right. Like Ramses, internal organs are missing. Then we go to the next guy, Amenhotep III. Conditions found in the same as Ramses II. The mummy is well preserved but shows more deterioration due to age and handling, so it's a lot older by at least a century. The face and body are intact but less visually striking than Ramses II or Seti. Wuya and Tajuya. They're not royal mummies, but they're mummies. Are exceptionally preserved with lifelike faces, hair, and skin. Okay. Lady Ra condition is noted for excellent preservation with intact skin and features. She is less famous, but a high quality example of mummification. All right, so the whole thing, most preserved, best preserved, is subjective. All right. Conclusion: Ramses is one of the best preserved mummies due to its intact condition, detailed. However, mummies like Seti for facial preservation and Yuya, near pristine state, may be considered equally or more impressive by some criteria. Without a universal standard, Ramses II is a top contender, but not definitely the best preserved. All right, key sources. All right, so then I said any non-Egyptian mummies that are said to be better preserved. Yes, several non-Egyptian mummies are often cited as being better preserved than the Egyptian mummies. Therefore, the Egyptian mummies are not the best. Therefore, Ramses II is not the most preserved mummy that we know. We have mummies like Zhenjui. Okay, now she is younger. The lady died. She is younger by about 1,000 years. And condition: skin remains soft, moist, and flexible, with intact blood vessels, muscles, and organs. Her joints are movable, and type A blood was found in her veins. Wow! Her hair, eyelashes, and even stomach contents, melon seeds, are preserved, allowing detailed autopsy revealing arteriosclerosis and gallstones. Poor lady. Mechanism: the body was immersed in an unknown acidic liquid, possibly mercury based, within a sealed coffin, preventing bacterial decay. All right. Unlike Ramses, whose mummy is desiccated and lacks internal organs due to mummification. All right, and we got some Otzi the Iceman. Whoa! About 2,000 years before Ramses. Condition: the skin, the muscles, the tendons, and tattoos, over 60 by the way. The oldest known tattoos are intact. Though dehydrated, his internal organs, including stomach contents, ibex meat, and grains, are preserved, allowing dietary and excuse me, and health analysis. Apparently, the guy was lactose intolerant and had Lyme disease. His body is shriveled but structurally complete with minimal decay. So his body is better than Ramses II. Let's go to another one. The Chinchurro mummies from Chile and Peru, 5,000 to 3,000 BC. Wow, 2,000 to 4,000 years before Ramses. All right, condition: the Chinchurro mummies varied, but many retained the hair, the skin, and reconstructed features. Their organs were removed and the bodies were reassembled with reeds, clay, and wigs. Oh my God, they tore the guy apart and put him back together. Often painted black or red, retaining skin and hair. All right. Much better than Ramses. And we got the Terran mummies in China. Condition: the mummies have intact skin and hair, often red or blonde, and clothing, and with vivid facial features. Their desiccated tissues preserve fine details like eyelashes and textiles, giving a lifelike appearance. Right? Much better than Ramses II. And bog bodies. This is in Denmark, 400 BC, slightly about 800 years after. Condition: the Toulon's man's face is strikingly lifelike with closed eyes. He even has beard stubble and a serene expression. Skin, hair, and stomach content, apparently he liked porridge, are preserved, though bones are partially decalcified due to acid bog conditions. So, ladies and gentlemen, she just lied out of her ass, right? Ramses is not the most preserved mummy in the world. Here we go. Why non-Egyptian mummies are often better preserved. Natural versus artificial preservations. Blah, blah, blah. I am not going to bore you. I'm just going to say that Zhangju, Otis, and bog buddies are better preserved than any Egyptian mummy. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you like this. It was 24 minutes. I know, it's boring, but I gotta expose this blonde bimbo. I'll see you on the next one because I got 2 more to do.